Can you also tell me when to hit the next slide for Shannon?
Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Parker.
And I'm Carter.
And we are here to welcome you to Brentwood's 11th annual TEDx.
So, since we're in a new generation, I bet everybody has a phone. So if you have one, can you please raise it in the air? Just please, thank you. Please and thank you, just quickly. And now can you put it on silent and then put it back in your pocket?
Before we begin, I would like to thank a few people. First, the staff, the volunteers, and the speakers themselves for putting so much dedication, hard work, and time into this event. Could we please give them a big round of applause?
So our first speaker of the day is a powerful thought leader. She is a health and family wellness coach who has dedicated her life to reshaping education and helping people find their strengths within. Today, she'll be sharing insight with you upon how using failure will help you find the magic inside. Can we all please give a big round of applause for Shannon Simpson?
I jumped out of bed, beaming with excitement, my hair still in the pink plastic curlers that my mom had put in the night before. I ran to my closet, I swung open the doors, and as I looked up, I could feel a huge smile come over my face. It was my first day of grade 2. Carefully hung was my new blue dress, covered in white polka dots, with a beautiful yellow sash. On the floor below were my black, shiny strap shoes that clicked like tap shoes with every step that I took. I eagerly got dressed, brushed my teeth, as my mom took each curler out of my hair one by one. I then raced downstairs, ate my Rice Krispies, as I watched a few minutes of Scooby-Doo. I then grabbed my jacket and my backpack, and I headed out the back door. I was so excited to see my friends that I'd missed over the summer holidays. As I arrived at school, I made my way up the stairs, I hung up my jacket, and then made my way into the classroom and found a seat in the front row. I took all my new school supplies out, laid them neatly out on my desk, each pencil crayon sharpened to perfection, all in my brand new pencil case that opened like a jewelry box with the most elegant unicorn on top. I was ready to learn. But what I did not know was in the next moment, my life would change forever. The teacher walked to the front of the room with class list in hand. She looked down at her list and back up at the students, and then announced to the entire class, "Shannon, you failed grade 1. Please pack up your things and follow me." In that moment, I not only failed grade 1, but I had become the failure. I carried that story with me for years, and it shaped my life in ways I didn't even realize. It became a part of who I was, constantly trying to prove myself, terrified of making mistakes, terrified of others seeing me make a mistake, and terrified that I was a mistake. I grew up in a time where many parents, maybe like some of yours, did not express emotions very well. My father, a perfectionist, set high standards for everything, and I absorbed that pressure, became obsessed with not failing, always trying to please everyone, even at the expense of my own well-being. I could never sit still, always trying to be seen as a success, addicted to accomplishment. It became an ongoing joke that Shannon would never be in a relationship with someone who could keep up with her. But it wasn't about keeping up with me. It was about my constant desire and need to avoid failure. But the more I ran from failure, the more it seemed to find me. I had failed jobs, had failed courses, had failed marriage, one failure after another. And each one only reinforced the story that I, in fact, was the failure. I even carried that story with me into motherhood. And it wasn't until a few years ago where I realized I had passed it down to my children. I was in a counseling session with my son and his father. My son was struggling in school. Every time he did anything that was difficult or hard, he would either make excuses or he would quit altogether. As I sat there, I had the painful realization that this counseling session wasn't for my son. It was for me. My unwillingness to face my own pain and my own fear of failure was now my son's to contend with. I was asking him to do the work that I so desperately avoided. My heart broke. For the first time, I fully understood what they meant when they say, kids do as they see. But what I've come to learn is that failure isn't about avoiding mistakes. It's about avoiding discomfort. But it's through the discomfort that we grow and build confidence to face our challenges head on and become who we are meant to be. We pursue our dreams not in the absence of failure, but through it. Like all of us, life has shown me many challenges. I'm a survivor of childhood abuse. I'm a breast cancer survivor. I've supported my immediate family in navigating autism, anxiety, anorexia, and trauma. But none of this makes me a failure. Instead, it has made me who I am today. I've spent years co-facilitating a program for teens, and one of the most powerful things that I've witnessed is that when we embrace vulnerability and discomfort, tremendous growth happens. I've seen it time and time again with the teens that I've worked with. When they face their fears and know that failure is just an illusion, they begin to see failure not as an obstacle, but an opportunity guiding them towards their full potential. Every challenge sharpens their vision. Every mistake strengthens their resilience. And every setback is a lesson in how to rise stronger and braver. And you know what? Those gifts are inside each and every one of you, waiting to be discovered. Thomas Edison failed 1,000 times before inventing the light bulb. As a teen, Beyoncé lost in a talent show. Walt Disney was told that he lacked imagination, and Oprah Winfrey was let go of her first television show. We all fail, but failure is not about never falling down. Failure is about never daring to get back up. So here's what I invite you to consider today. What if your greatest wound, the thing that you fear the most, is actually the key to unlocking your greatest contribution to this world? What if, as Marianne Williamson so eloquently said, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. So remember, when the path ahead is uncertain, trust in your own worth. And remember, you will rise. Thank you.
Wow, what an incredible talk. Our next speaker is from sunny California. She's a hardworking and inspirational individual who's passionate on environmental justice and protection. She's the captain of Brentwood's very own beat. In her thrifted boots, please welcome to the stage, Ruby Satuski, with her talk, Breaking the Cycle, Terminating Quick Fixes and Half-Asses.
I want you to imagine you're on vacation. You're in a cool place with your favorite people doing things you love to do. Maybe you have a few responsibilities or none, but the point is, you're free and you've never been happier. What's the catch, you ask? This vacation ends in 1 year and it's never coming back. So you know what you're gonna do? You're gonna tell yourself, 12 months is so far away. I don't need to think about that right now. And you're gonna put it off. It'll creep up, and when it hits you hard. So, this was me. In 8th grade, living my year-long vacation in Whistler. I had never felt more free and more happy, and I did not want to think about the end because I couldn't imagine a life anywhere else. So when it did eventually come, it hit me hard. It ended with a quick drive from California, from Whistler all the way to California. A 17-hour drive with nothing but me, my dad, no access to aux, the sweet sound of business calls and podcasts. And don't get me wrong, I love my dad, but I don't want to fall asleep to EDM music. So, as I was sitting here, it was 13 hours into the drive, and I was thinking about everything I had lost, all my friends, all my freedom, my middle school boyfriend, and I grew so sad. And as I sat there, I grew exhausted. I shut my eyes, and you know that feeling when a bright light is being shown in your face, and you can feel it on your face, but your eyes are closed? So that was happening, and I was confused because it was the dead of the night. So I opened my eyes, and I see this. The road was on fire. We had just crossed the California border, and there looked like there was no way around this fire. Smoke billowed into the sky, painting it a post-apocalyptic orange, like Blade Runner 2049, and the car was surrounded by flames. Suddenly, all the things I had been dwelling on just left my head. I was in a state of shock, because what the hell was happening? This was when global warming slapped me in the face. And this is when I started to think long term. I used to take 30-minute-long, boiling hot showers, and I stopped that and truncated it. I used to order Shein packages every week with clothes I never wore, and I stopped doing that. I really started to pay attention in class, and I found a passion for environmental justice and advocacy. So this year, I became the captain of the Brentwood Environmental Action Team, and I was tasked with motivating the entire student body to care about the environment. So what about the people who haven't been slapped in the face, who haven't dealt with the floods, the droughts, the fires, the hurricanes? How was I supposed to convince them that this should be a priority? And I came up with a list of 4 main incentives of what drive us day to day to do things. Money. So you see these boys around campus with the craziest haircuts, and you think, who did they pay to get that done? And then you find out, oh, they got paid $130, and it makes sense. Could I pay people to care about the environment? We have clout. This is the peer approval, the reward at the end of a competition that makes us want to do things. Could I create games and pit people against each other to care? We have fear, the feeling when we're studying until 5 a.m. for your anatomy and physiology test that you haven't even looked at, because what if you fail? What if your parents are disappointed in you? This is what drives us to do this. Could I scare people into caring about the environment? And the quick fix. I know we all know that feeling, scrolling on Reels for hours when there's a pile of work we have to do. And this is because we get dopamine from doing things like this. It's a quick fix. It rushes our brain and makes us feel satisfied for only a moment. The same feeling we get when we online shop or eat fast food or vape, things that aren't good for us, but they rush our brains with dopamine. So the 3 main incentives that drive us day to day fall under the quick fix umbrella. They're short term. They're not long-lasting, so how was I supposed to convince people to care and make long-term changes to their life when these incentives weren't even good? I do not have the funds to pay everyone to recycle properly. What happens when there's no longer a competition, when there's no longer a winner? Would people still care? And I could scare people, but what if I told you our world has never been hotter? There are more CO2 particles in the air than there has been in human history. This is increasing rates of cancer and asthma. Icebergs are melting, communities are underwater, people are dying, and our world is going to end. You see what happened there? You wanted to shut that out because that stresses us, that fears us. We have so many things day to day that we have to worry about. So why another stressor? Why another thing we have to worry about? So at this point, I was confused. How was I going to convince people? And then it hit me. A 5th incentive. Something that's less obvious, something we don't strive for day to day when we should. The anti-quick fix. Long-term happiness. When I tell you, if you focus on long-term happiness, you are an untapped gold mine of potential in yourself, a gold mine to grow. And it's those things in the long term that will aid you. It'll give you perpetual satisfaction, not just the quick rush, not just the quick fix. So how do you do this, you may ask? So we have a horse, and he looks like a pretty chill horse. He looks fine, but he would prosper if he was in a pack because horses thrive in herds. We are like horses. When we are part of a community bigger than ourselves, with other people, together we thrive. It is the things that give us purpose, being a part of something larger with people, surrounding ourselves together. Harvard conducted a 75-year study to figure out the secret to happiness in life. Was it fame? Was it money? No, it was the quality of our relationships with each other, how happy we are with the people around us that contributed to happier, longer living, and healthier lives together. We have a horse who wants to learn how to box, but how's he gonna do that? He can't even stand up on 2 legs. But you know what he's gonna do? He's gonna practice, get a punching bag, and every day he's gonna go at it. And he may not be Conor McGregor tomorrow, but the more he tries and the more he practices, he'll get better. It'll be uncomfortable, but we only thrive in discomfort. We only grow through discomfort. Our minds get smarter when we challenge them. Our muscles grow when we lift until failure. You can't go in the gym and bench 225 on the first day. You have to go every day and work at it. Only in discomfort and training can we thrive. We have a horse. Your dream is to become a cowboy. But this is a wild horse. It's scared. It goes crazy. It doesn't want you to ride it. So you have 2 options. You can A, give up on this horse and run away. Or you can ride this horse, you can tame this horse. So, what the heck is she talking about? Let me tell you, this horse is the physical manifestation of all your fears, all your stressors and anxieties. When it bucks and when it goes crazy, it controls you, and you don't want that. You want to control your fears by doing something about it, taking the reins of your stressors and your fears by actually changing your life and focusing on those fears, and you grow. Do not be victim to them. Control them. Tame them. So here are the 3 aspects of long-term happiness. Together, training and taming. So once I cracked this, I could relate this back to my club. Together, we are not in this world alone. When we care about each other and when we do things for the environment, we are a part of something bigger than just ourselves, a larger purpose, a life purpose. Together. Training. If you train your environmental habits every day, you get better and better. It becomes second nature. Don't be too lazy to sort your trash. Just do it, because eventually it will become second nature. And taming. I know you've all thought about the environment, all been scared about what could happen, but if you do something about it, if you take the reins on these stressors and the fears, they will not control you. So I implore you to scrap the quick fixes. Be generous to your future self. Become a part of a larger community together. Train, embrace discomfort, and tame your stressors and your fears. Take the reins of your life and focus on your long-term happiness. Thank you.
Next up today, we have someone who I really deeply look up to, but quite literally looks up to me. Someone who I'm very proud of and happens to be my twin sister. Please give it up for Kennedy Peterson.
Trust? What if I told you to stop trusting everyone you think is smart? Obviously, this is never going to happen because trusting others is something we do without a second thought. We trust our teachers to help us learn, just like we trust our Uber drivers to take us to our destinations. But what we often worry about is trusting ourselves, specifically trusting our instincts. But what if that instinct was the one thing that could help you more than anything? But you would never know this because you doubted your own ability to identify and tackle the problems you face. Now, I'm sure you may be thinking, Kennedy, I don't know what you're talking about, and you sound pretty dramatic. I'm sure you all believe that you could trust yourself over other people's words pretty easily. But in reality, the trust we give ourselves is often situational. Like if your dad told you how to do a math problem, and you weren't sure if you were correct or not, but he learned how to do the content 30 years ago, and you learned how to do it 2 weeks ago. So it would be easy for you to believe that you are situationally smarter. But you wouldn't usually go around challenging his work and educational experience with your astounding middle school degree. Think about it. We tend to not believe our instincts if the people we look up to tell us no. And we neglect these internal monologues based on these people's perceptions of how we act. In fact, this is so common that psychologist Stanley Milgram created a name for it: authority bias. Basically, we are socially conditioned to obey authority figures based on the increased likelihood for survival because they tend to have more knowledge and experience than us. It seems reasonable at face value, but in reality, these superiors do not always know what they're talking about. They cannot always predict the most optimal outcomes, and they do not always know what's best for us. Despite this, we do not trust ourselves because the idea that these superiors are wrong seems so much less likely than the possibility that we are wrong. However, our instincts are incredibly powerful at telling us when something isn't right. And it is time for you to start trusting that instinct, because that trust changed my life, and it might change yours. Now, before I continue on with my talk, I have been saying the word instinct a lot, but I haven't actually explained it for you. So here's a quick debrief. According to the American Psychology Association, a person's instinct is their intuitive way of acting or thinking, prompted by our genetics and our environment. And the region of our brain that controls our instincts also controls our subconscious responses and our pain, which means these things are connected. And this connection is super important because it means that the perception of our problems and the impact they have on our lives is dependent upon these instincts that acknowledge our pain and allow us to validate that something is wrong. And tons of instincts can appear across 3 different categories, those being self-preservation, social engagement, and attraction. But even famous philosophers like Karl Marx have ignored this phenomenon, labeling instincts as shallow and hard to interpret. But as discovered by Mark Abraham, this researcher on the causes of perpetual human conflict, when you ignore your instincts, you can impair your intelligence, hinder your happiness, and ignore real issues in your life. Consider this. How many times have you ignored an instinct of yours and been fully satisfied with the result? And I'm not just talking about that feeling you get when you're trying to guess on the multiple choice section of your exams, but real life issues. And this issue only continues when your role models and advisors dismiss these beliefs of yours, convincing you not to trust it. In fact, I fell into this trap. As a kid, I complained a lot after running, and I walked funny after playing sports. And I like to say the words, "My knees hurt," a lot. I played the statement off as lighthearted, never pushing harder than a, "Maybe we should see the doctor." But it was my 11-year-old way of saying, "Hey, Mom and Dad, I am really hurting." I looked up to them for an answer, but I wasn't looking to the right adults because they also didn't know what was going on, only sure of the fact that they did not want to believe that their daughter was always in pain. And so, my self-doubt about my pain being my imagination was validated. My parents often saying, "It's probably growing pains. You'll grow out of it." And this idea continued when we explored some options, like poor balance and instability, where my brain was scanned and I went to physical therapy. But nothing changed, because this was not the right answer. And so for years, this idea of growing pains was believable. It was my life. And so I went on, and I stopped talking about it so much, as I lost sight of the real problem. But the truth is, I allowed myself to be convinced of a reality where my issue did not exist. And I only let myself be convinced of this because I believed the people conveying these ideas were 10 times smarter than me. I was a first-hand example of authority bias. But love and good intent from these people did not equate to solutions, and we were all way off the mark. In fact, it took me 7 years of chronic pain to get diagnosed. And finally, after getting x-rays and MRI scans, we had a doctor check out the bones in my knee area. And even before looking at the scans, I distinctly remember her telling me, "It's probably a muscular imbalance in your legs, which is great because we can fix this easily." But when the scans were pulled up, her face changed, a little less enthusiastic now, and my instincts finally became true to everyone, not just me. I was diagnosed with multifocal osteochondral dissecant lesions with a component of a vascular necrosis. In simpler terms, I was diagnosed with a condition where the bone underneath the cartilage in my knee joints had died and was decomposing due to lack of blood flow. And you can see that decomposing bit in the little red circle on the screen. This was a little different than me being pretty clumsy and unbalanced or not having super strong legs. And although we explored some possibilities, my parents and I avoided these extreme scenarios because no parent wants to believe their child is really struggling. And I believed my parents. And I recognize that this issue is not something most people can relate to, but when the people you look up to convey an assumption or bias about you, whether it be your parents or the influencers you watch on social media, it can be extremely difficult to actualize your own problem. And especially when we are young and impressionable, it can be really easy for us to have our thoughts reflect what we're told. And even easier for us to label these experiences as temporary and unconcerning. But it isn't only problematic that I allowed myself to be convinced to ignore my instincts, but I didn't fight hard enough for them. Going back to that idea of blind trust in our mentors, I was so quick to allow the words of my parents, coaches, and doctors to become dominant in our conversations. I became nervous that my complaints were annoying, as they had already given me answers. And so, for years, I did not push for solutions. But I strongly believe that if I could have better advocated for myself, I would have been able to get help quicker, saving a lot of pain down the road. So it is the times when we are not being listened to that we need to persist, emphasizing the impact of our experiences on our lives, because we are the only ones facing the consequences. Whether it be reaching out to someone else or communicating in a different way, sometimes even these small adaptations can create big changes. And that positive change is always worth it. All it took for me to get help was to communicate my problem in a different way. That's it, detailing the full extent of my problem. And I couldn't be more grateful because now I can live a life without pain. Ultimately, allowing yourself to be convinced of biases and invalidating your experiences prevents you from finding out what could be. So knowing the value of your experience on your life is the most valuable tool you have at your disposal, because what you feel matters more than what you are told. As Steve Jobs said, don't let the noise of others drown your inner voice. The next time your instinct tells you something's wrong, trust it, ask questions, seek second opinions, and don't let anyone dismiss your voice. So remember this, trust your instincts, because in a world full of opinions, sometimes only you know what's right. Thank you.
Well done, Kennedy. Our next speaker is an experienced investment advisor and avid runner from Vancouver. With 15 years at RBC Dominion Securities as a portfolio and wealth advisor, outside of work he channels his passion into running, skiing, and philanthropy. He's now preparing for the Great World Race, aiming to become the youngest Canadian to run 7 marathons on 7 continents in 7 days, raising funds through his foundation, Happy Kids. He previously raised $77,000 to local children's charities by running 122 kilometers from Vancouver to Whistler. His goal is to inspire others with his commitment to perseverance, leadership, and giving back. Please welcome to the stage, Colin Zawickel, with his talk, Mind Over Miles, the secret to achieving the impossible.
Thank you so much. It's an absolute honor and pleasure to be here. What a beautiful campus that you have. I was walking around yesterday and really enjoyed myself interacting with some of you, the volunteers, and some of you in this room today. I do have one little confession to make. I went to Shawnigan Lake School for a year. I was expecting some more booze, so you guys are quite nice. I did have a bit of a slower start to life. So I do attribute all this to Shawnigan, and I hear you guys don't have this same problem at Brentwood. So good job, teachers. Today, I wanted to share with you a lot of the challenges that I've had in life and some of the tools that I've used to overcome them. But before I dive into it, I did want to tell you a bit about the run that I have coming up. So yes, that's correct. I'm attempting to be the youngest Canadian to run 7 marathons over 7 days, over 7 different continents. So let me put this in perspective. 7 marathons is the equivalent of running 300 kilometers. That's the same as running from Victoria all the way to Tofino. And any of you that are TV buffs here, the total time on my feet, pounding pavement, and in my case, snow as well, that's the same as watching all 4 seasons of Stranger Things. I've been asked too, how many flight hours is the run going to be? 60 hours. So that's the same as sitting on an airplane for me as sitting in this auditorium for 2.5 days straight. Painful, right? So let me show you what this looks like. So this is going to be my journey. On November 11th, I'm going to fly to Cape Town, where I'll try to accommodate the new time zone and get used to it before it completely gets messed up again. My first run's going to kick off in Antarctica, where I'll be, struggling through the snow. 5.5 hours later, I'll be flying back to Cape Town for marathon number 2. Then I can go all the way to Perth, Australia for marathon number 3. Take a flight 20 hours to Istanbul, where I'll be running marathons number 4 and 5 on both sides of the bridge, Asia, Europe. Then I'll be traveling 17 hours to Colombia for marathon number 6, and then finishing off in Miami for marathon number 7. So, everyone asks me as well, which run am I most nervous for? Let me just get the obvious out there. Running on snow for 42 kilometers does not sound that appealing, right? I'm a bit nervous for that. So, throughout this, I'm going to be battling extreme temperatures, trying to keep my feet dry and warm, negative 10 to 15 degrees plus wind chill. I'll be doing 2 laps around this beautiful mountain that you see here. Next, I'm going to be battling the heat and humidity in Istanbul. And I'm going to be battling my body in Colombia and Miami for the last 2 marathons. Finding your why, the reason for pushing through when everything else tells you to stop. So why am I doing all this? It's a very good question. I'm still trying to figure it out myself. I had a major accident in my life that almost changed the trajectory forever. This was the last photo taken. You can see my brother in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, dirt biking in beautiful Squamish, British Columbia. The next thing I remember, for all the parents out there concerned about their children, I woke up in the intensive care unit at St. Paul's Hospital. I'd completely shattered my elbow, I'd shattered my forearm, and I lost complete feeling in my hip and my thigh. So the doctor came into the room and he looked at me and said, "Colin, I have some good news and bad news." I said, "Doc, hit me with the good news." Good news always first, right? Doctor said, "We just performed a very intensive 3-hour surgery on you and everything went smooth." I said, "Oh geez, that's the good news. What's the bad news?" He said, "Your mobility in your arm as you knew it will be no longer. You won't have full range of motion and you won't have mobility in your arm." So as soon as the doctor told me I wasn't able to use my arm, that's obviously when I wanted to use my arm the most. So I spent the next few days in intensive care, and then I was released, and then I spent the next year of my life trying to recover. No matter what I did, RMT, physio, I even went to naturopathic treatment, PRP, I tried everything. At the end of the year, I still felt like I was walking around with somebody else's arm attached to me. So why am I telling you all this? Well, I had a lot of time to reflect in the hospital, and my biggest fear in life was being 80, 90 years old on my deathbed, looking back at my life, realizing that I left so much potential untapped and leaving a lot on the table. So I encourage you to find your why. Please, a little disclaimer, don't go dirt biking and injure yourself to find yours. Finding your way. How many of you feel like you're spread too thin? No hands? Everyone's got a completely calm life. Yeah. Okay, I see a few there. Yeah. That was me. I always felt like I was working 80, 90% capacity at everything. My life was very busy. It was very hectic, but I was never excelling at anything. So I was working 12 hours a day in the corporate grind. When things got challenged there, I would spend time playing sports. I was part of many different sports clubs. When things got challenged there, or I got injured, I would spend time hanging out with friends and family. If relationships got pressed, I'll go back and work long hours, and it was this vicious cycle going around and around. So after my accident, and after realizing that I'm never fully untapping my full potential, I discovered this term in an interview that I was watching online. A Japanese concept where you set a challenge that pushes you beyond what you think is possible. This is the misogi. Let me read that again. A challenge that pushes you beyond what you think is possible. Sounds scary, right? Well, yeah, it is. I didn't know what my misogi was going to be. I didn't know any of the details. All I knew is I wanted to try this misogi. So I was driving from Vancouver to Whistler one day, 122 kilometers, and I thought to myself, I wonder if this is possible to run. I dismissed the idea quickly, said that's too crazy, but for some reason, this idea just kept popping back into my head. There's two problems. Number one, I was 40 pounds heavier than I am today. Number two, I never ran in my entire life. So how was I going to do this thing? So it was perfect. The misogi was perfect because it scared the heck out of me. So as my training progressed, I ended up trying to piecemeal this into bite-sized pieces. Before I told anybody that I was going to run to Whistler, I decided to run 10 kilometers a day at 5 in the morning, 5 days a week for 3 months straight. I got through the 3 months, and I probably wanted to quit more than 100 times. It's very challenging. I was slow. My body hurt. I told myself all these different excuses as to why I wasn't the proper runner frame, and this idea was just a little bit too crazy. I ended up training for the next 8 months after that, and that's when I started telling people that I was going to run to Whistler. And I got told that I was crazy quite a bit. So I spent thousands of kilometers training on the road, never being a runner, and started to wrap my head around this. I learned a few things during this training that I want to share with you. Routine is stronger than any quick motivational boost. We've all been sent inspirational YouTube videos, Instagram reels, heard inspirational quotes. The problem with this is it gets you excited for a little bit, and if that motivation stays with you for a day, if it stays with you for a week, or if you're an outlier and it stays with you for a month, the motivation eventually fades. Routine is stronger than any motivational boost. Tackle that little voice. We all know the one that I'm talking about, right? See some head nods. Yeah, that little voice. Mine was the loudest at 5 in the morning when I knew I had to get out and run. It was raining and it was cold. This voice just ran wild in my head, telling me all these crazy excuses on why I should stay in bed. And they all sounded very good. I was even thinking, some of these excuses were, geez, I wonder if you're going to get hit by lightning. It's raining pretty hard. I mean, it's wild the things your mind comes up with. So how do you tackle this little voice? Well, you tell it to shut up, and you tackle it within the first 1 or 2 seconds and don't negotiate with it. And finally, keeping the contract you made with yourself, especially when no one is watching. So if you're setting ambitious goals, keep that promise and contract with yourself. I just want to share a very short video of me accomplishing something that I never thought was physically or mentally possible. This is a video of me after running 18 and a half hours straight, 2,200 meters of elevation, and you can imagine I was pretty tired. Tired, right? So I spent an entire year of my life preparing and training for this day. I was so focused on this one moment in my life where I hated running. I didn't enjoy any part of the training along, but all I had was this one moment in my head trying to reach the finish line. So what I wanted to share with you today and leave you with is, please enjoy the journey, not just the finish line. Thank you very much.
All right, everybody, that's our break. We'll see you in 20 minutes. Please do not try to go back to the houses. They are locked. So please hang around in like the reception area outside of the theater. And we'll see you in 20.
NFTs. He has been doing this for about 3+ years now and is even working on starting his own business. He hails from Tokyo, Japan. Please give it up for your very own Brentwood student, Shunsuke.
Would you rather own this Ferrari or this picture? Ferrari or this picture of a monkey? By the way, how much do you think this image was purchased for? The answer is $3 million. I'm guessing most of you would choose this Ferrari, and it's understandable. It's a dream car for many. It's fast and luxurious. My favorite soccer player, Neymar, owns one. Many celebrities like Lil Baby and Paris Hilton owns one too. I'm gonna be honest, this Paris Hilton's is kind of ugly. But anyway, it's a cool exclusive car brand. But for me, I would rather own this monkey picture, and I know it sounds crazy. The reason I would choose this picture is because it's not just a picture. It's called an NFTs. So I know some of you are thinking, what the hell is an NFT? Or maybe you've heard of it, but never really understood it. So that's why I'm here to answer those questions today. Let's go back to the example of a monkey picture. I told you guys that it's not just a digital image. For instance, Steph Curry made his monkey picture as his Twitter profile picture, and Lil Baby, same thing. And even Paris Hilton owns one of these monkeys. So what if I told you that owning this picture could give you access to an exclusive community of celebrities, entrepreneurs, creators, and more? Now, I'm exaggerating a bit when I say you'll meet all these celebrities and all these people, but it's not far from reality. There are meetups that are exclusive for these ape holders, where you might actually end up chatting with Paris Hilton and telling her that her Ferrari is ugly. Now, maybe some of you are more interested. Might be wondering, what do I mean by owning a picture? Let me tell you the biggest mistake I made when I first got into NFTs. I did what a lot of people do. I searched up on Google, what is NFT? And what did I find? I found the same confusing phrase over and over again, saying NFTs are non-fungible token. What the hell does this mean? Not exactly helpful, right? So, NFT stands for non-fungible token. And I know it sounds like a lot of technical stuff, but let me break it down. Essentially, NFTs are the way to prove the ownership of digital item using blockchain technology. I won't bore you with every technical details, besides I have an impossible task of explaining how NFT works in 15 minutes without putting all you into sleep with a nerdy tech words. But I want you to understand why NFTs are so important. So who uses ChatGPT here? Don't worry, teachers aren't spying on you. We get it. It's super easy to see why using it is convenient. Apparently, ChatGPT can write a whole essay for your assignment. Not that I would know, Mr. Skirtle. But when it comes to NFTs, it's not something that feels super relevant to most people yet. And it's much harder to picture how they can be useful. And that's why many people think NFTs are pointless. So to understand non-fungible token, we first need to know what fungible means. Fungible means replaceable. For example, 1 ounce of gold is same as any other ounce of gold. The same goes for a dollar bill or even Bitcoin. You can trade one for the other because they are identical in value. Non-fungible, on the other hand, means unique and irreplaceable. Think of a house. Each house is different. You can't trade one house for another and expect them to be exactly the same. NFTs are unique digital items that can't be swapped one for one. Let's go back to the example of monkey picture I mentioned earlier. It's part of a collection called Bored Ape Yacht Club. If you spend $40,000 right now to buy one of their monkey picture, you can join their community. And what I really want you to understand about this monkey picture is that it's not just a digital image. It's a brand. Each ape is unique with its own distinct traits. And when you buy one, you're not just getting a picture. You're unlocking access to an entire community and exclusive perks. And NFTs are what makes this uniqueness verifiable. Now let's compare this to a Ferrari. Ferrari is unique too, right? There are different models, engines, and colors. But what makes an NFT completely different is that it's entirely digital, and yet it can still have enormous value. So by using NFTs, you can prove the ownership of digital items. It's like having a certificate that says, "This is mine." So to illustrate this, let me do something quick. Hey, smile. So I just took this picture. Now I'm going to send this to my roommate, Julian. So we both have the same picture on our phones now. But if we show people the same picture, how would they know who actually took it? This is where NFT comes in handy. If I upload this image to the blockchain as an NFT, everyone can see who created it and who owns it. It's public, it's transparent, and most importantly, it can't be altered or faked. So now we understand what NFTs do, but why is it important? Why does proving the ownership of digital items matter? Let me ask you this. How many of you have social media here? Probably most of you. And how many of you have ever wanted one of these? That's right, the blue checkmark. On Instagram, this blue little icon shows that you're verified. It's just a digital symbol, nothing you can touch. But some people really want it. Why? Because it proves something about you in an online world. In the same way, NFT proves the ownership in the digital world. It's not about a physical item, it's about what it represents. And that's why people are willing to spend millions on something that seems like just a picture. And additionally, NFTs have potential in many other areas too, like gaming. Now, I know some of you love playing games like Brawl Stars, FIFA, Minecraft, and more. And I bet some of you play during classes. And I also know that lots of you spend a lot of time and money on these games. But here's the thing. When you stop playing, doesn't that feel like all that time and money you invested just disappears? Well, that's because when you buy these characters or items, you don't actually own them. You're just paying for the temporary use within that game. But imagine if those characters were NFTs, the digital assets you truly own. If that were the case, you could sell those characters, trade them, and even use that money to buy things in other games. With NFTs, your time and money wouldn't go to waste. Furthermore, there's more to it than just the status or ownership. NFTs are creating entire community. Take the Bored Ape Yacht Club, for example. You're buying a digital Ferrari, and if you own one of these apes, you're not just an owner, you're part of an exclusive club. You get access to events, parties, and even private concerts where you might bump into your favorite celebrities. NFTs are not just about collecting art or showing off. They are a tool that allows you to truly own things in the digital world. And the possibilities of what you can do with them are endless. So back to our original question, why would anyone pay $3 million for a picture of a monkey? The answer is because It's not just a picture. It's a new form of ownership. It's your gateway to a community and connection to something far bigger than just a JPEG file. NFTs are still in their early stage, but they're already changing how we think about value in the digital world. And whether you're into it or not, they are here to stay. And they're transforming industries from art, entertainment, and gaming, and beyond. So next time you see a digital monkey selling for millions, don't just see the image. Think what's behind it. The technology, the community, and the future of the ownership. And today's talk is not even 1% of the entire blockchain technology. There are so many possibilities waiting to be explored. So I encourage you to dive deeper and pay close attention to what's coming. Thank you.
Makes me want to invest in NFTs. Our next speaker is an architect, sailor, and former Olympic rower. He's passionate about high performing and how to achieve a richer, more meaningful experience from buildings and the built environment. Please welcome to the stage, Cedric Burgers, with his talk, The Future of Architecture, Biophilia, and Climate Change.
Hi, everybody. I'm Cedric. I'm going to try and tie together for you today two things that, big words, and maybe they don't make a lot of sense, and hopefully by the end of this talk, you'll see the connection. So the first word is biophilia. What does it mean? So biophilia is love of nature, love of life. And if I just tell you a little bit about statistics here, it takes about 4,000 generations to enact a genetic change in a human being. So how many, if that's 30 years, it's 100 per generation, it's 120,000 years. So we live in a world where we were adapted, 120,000 years ago, we were adapted to this world. And we're now living in a very, very different world than we were 120,000 years ago. No fire, no light, no computers, no schools, no Brentwood, none of this. So who we are deep inside of ourselves is very different from how we live nowadays. And so understanding that disconnect is really important. I don't have to explain climate change to any of you. I think we're all aware of it. Greenhouse gases, the effect of CO2 on our environment. It's also a very critical part of what I do every day, is thinking about how we can implement different kinds of architecture to start to tackle that issue of climate change. I'm an architect. I mentioned this a few times. Here's some projects that I do. Single-family houses, renovations, commercial buildings, even way up north in Fort St. John, factories, and cabins in Whistler. I have a lot of fun in what I do. One of the things we're trained as architects to do is really understand human nature and how people want to live and how they inhabit the spaces they live in. We kind of tap into sort of biophilia in a sort of an intuitive way. It takes years and years. So if any of you are thinking about becoming architects, it's at least 12 years of training once you leave high school. And then you do your internship, and then you start to practice. And it takes about 20 years before you actually become, well, before I actually became kind of confident in what I did, because there's a lot to learn. And you're learning about how people live and how they want to live in spaces, the distances between things, what makes things comfortable. That's all part of biophilia. Attack for a second here. I'm sure you're familiar with at least two of the images that I've got on the screen here. On the left, we've got the Apple Store, and they're all over the world, but this is the one in Vancouver. Now, Apple, and a lot of the companies like Apple, use technology to grab your attention and to understand how you're thinking. Not the way that you think you're thinking, but they're using technology, eye tracking software, skin sensors, in their skin. People go into these stores and onto their websites, and they sort of judge their reactions using this technology. They're walking through their store 100 times, thousands of times, using this software to really fine-tune it so that they can grab your attention, so that, in fact, I actually really like the Apple stores. I think they're really comfortable to be in. But the reason they're that way is because they've been designed. It's very, very intentional, and it's not by accident. The quality of the wood, the spacing, the lighting, the type of glass. It's all designed, and it's designed using software. Instagram, Meta. I love Instagram. I am addicted, yes. They're using eye tracking software, as you all know, probably, to see your reactions and to actually, it's part of the attention economy, to see how long they can track you and keep you on their sites. They're also using that same, very similar technology to what Apple's using. Now there's another one, Dragonfly. I just came across it. It's really interesting. I was hoping that I could use it in my practice, but it's an artificial intelligence software that allows you to see where people will look next and to see how products in particular, and maybe spaces, can be designed so that they maximize their commercial output. These are commercial firms. They're technology firms. They're using technology to get your dollars and to get your attention, and we're not even using it yet as architects. So on the other side of this coin, going back 1,000 years, there's 3 pictures up here. This is Siena on the left. It's a little town, a hilltop town in Italy. I love it. If anyone's been there, it's just good for you. If you haven't been there yet, try and make it there. It's a beautiful place. What makes it so beautiful, and we don't even understand why, maybe deeply rooted inside of us, what makes it so beautiful is that it's so human. You walk around that town and you feel like everything is just the right scale. The streets are the right width, the distances between stores are the right width, the campanile, the big opening in the center, it's this beautiful 100-meter width. It's just the perfect size for people. It's a human-centered town. Now, at the center of that town, up in the corner of that image, you can see that there's a Duomo, a church, a Catholic church, symbol of power, is part of that. The second image is from the Imperial Palace in Kyoto, other side of the world. Very, very different type of architecture, very different type of culture. 1,000 years old, 500 years old. It's been going forever and ever and ever. The Imperial Palace has gardens. It's got water. It's got planting. It's got low-scale architecture. This is a symbol of power from 500 years ago, but it's very, very human-centered. It's very approachable. And it remains relevant today because it is so beautiful, and we're attracted to it. People then, the architects, the designers, I didn't even think they had architects back then. I think they just had craftsmen and really smart people. They understood the value of a human-centered world. Guess where I'm going next? I'm going to Chicago, Sears Tower, glass towers, the environments that we're building today. The intention of the architects and the designers is to create a sense of awe, to overwhelm you. So be aware when you go to these spaces that it's glass, it's tall, it's powerful. Do you want to go there and nestle in? No. These are intimidating spaces, and they're intended to be intimidating. And we're getting more and more and more accustomed to spaces and places and cities that are built to intimidate us. They're not good for us. And what's happening is that there's this field of study called neuroaesthetics, neurological aesthetics. And what's happening in this field, people are realizing that places and spaces have an effect on us. And they have a long-term effect. They wear you down. They make you anxious. When you're confronted with glass towers every single day, sure, you can endure it for a little while, Stress is good for the body. We've all heard that. But is it good day in and day out, every day of your life? Okay, that's biophilia, a primer from my perspective. I'm going to talk about buildings and climate change for a moment. On this graph, you'll see the impact, greenhouse gases, of various sectors in our world. So it's very simplified, but the purple represents transportation. I drive a Tesla. We think we're doing a good job eliminating cars and buses and so forth, and using electricity instead of gas. But that's 22% of the greenhouse gases. Now let's think, maybe if everyone drives an electric car, maybe that might be reduced by 5 or 10%. Look at the big green chunk right there. That's buildings. 2 parts. 1, the use of energy in a building, 28% of all greenhouse gases. The gases that go in to heat this building, the gases that go to fire the turbines that charge our buildings with electricity, that's the 28%. 11% is for the construction of a building. So that's what goes in, all the trucks and the materials and everything to drive to the site to build the thing. So the construction industry and architecture has a lot to account for, but we don't really hear about it very much. It kind of gets buried because it's easy to think about cars, and it's easy to think, quite frankly, to pick on industry too. 30%, we didn't talk about that one. We'll leave that one out of it for the moment. But industry, you know, all industry counts for 30%. If you add the 28 and 11, that's 39% of all greenhouse gases come from buildings. That's what I need to tackle in my practice. Going back in time a little bit, 1977, Harold Orr, an architect in Saskatchewan, built this house. It's called the Saskatchewan Conservation House. It's an ugly little thing. Well, it depends on your perspective, I suppose. It was built as the first passive house in the world, in Canada. So this is amazing. It had solar array on the top there, south-facing glass, overhangs, and these kind of nifty little panels that would drop down to shield the windows when it got really cold. It's really cold in Regina. But this house survived without heating, with natural light in the house. It did have electricity for light, but it was the first, call it passive house, off-grid house. It didn't need electricity. This is at a time in 1977, and I remember this, and I don't think there are many people who do, when we had something called the OPEC oil crisis, and this is when people really knuckled down on efficiency. Unfortunately, gas prices dropped, oil prices dropped, and we forgot about this, and it went sort of as a relic to history. Didn't surface for another 20 years. Germany saw what Canada had done, and Germany needs to be energy independent. Germany, if you look at it geographically, is entirely surrounded by countries and doesn't have its own oil resources and can produce its own electricity, but it needs to have energy independence, especially when you have non-friendly neighbors around it like Russia, where it gets most of its oil from. So Germans, as Germans often do, took it upon themselves to quantify and to create a set of rules around what it would take to make a house virtually energy-free. There's 5 things, and you don't have to remember them. I'll just go through them real quick. Really good insulation, thick insulation, much thicker than we were ever used to. Good windows, triple-pane windows. Ventilation system, so we don't suffocate. We're exchanging the air all the time. It's the lungs of the house. Air tightness, no leaks. You open your jacket up, doesn't matter how good a jacket is, you're going to get cold. Thermal bridge reduction, beams that go from inside to out. So those are five things. If we can control those things, we can make a house and a building, they call it passive house, but it's actually all buildings, energy-free. So here's a little graph showing an old building up on the left-hand side, a typical house. So this is a house that might be built today. And what I want you to pay attention to there is the 3 colored bars or chunks underneath each of the little house figures. The top one is the household use, so this is all the appliances. That's the amount of energy that goes into running the appliances and all of the computers in a house day to day. The second thing is hot water heating. And the third thing is heating and cooling. So that big chunk underneath there, you can see what a sizable chunk it is, especially in the typical house in the old building. How much energy is consumed by a building. We think about that. That's where we want to target. If we can target that reduction, we can get to what's called a passive house. By those 5 principles that I talked about before, reduce, 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 we can get down to the passive house. That's the yellow band. It's a 90% reduction in our energy use in a house. This fascinates me because I just think it's so obvious. It's so smart. Not so easy to do. Next step, so you can see how all of the bands underneath the passive house have been reduced down to the bare minimum. The next thing to do, put some solar panels on your roof, and now you've got a house that is net zero or energy positive, contributes back to the grid. So this is incredible. Like, we're here now, and then you can see the cost of ownership. I think I just lost my button. The cost of ownership being reduced all the way down to minus 25%. So that's when a house starts to contribute back to the grid. Okay, where did I start on this journey? 2010. I was, probably recognize this if anyone's been to Whistler. This is the Lost Lake Loop passive house, and it's where the cross-country skiing is going. And I was up there with my daughter and my wife, and we were skiing around and came across this in 2010. I thought, what a magnificent little building. What is this? And I started to learn about this. This is from Austria, so it was the Austrian pavilion, and they served Glühwein and pretzels and things like this in the little pavilion next to it. And it was a great little building. And I walked inside, and I thought, oh my gosh, this really resonates with me. Something about this building feels really, really, really good. So I started to look into it, started to think about passive. I'd always been interested in high-performance buildings and energy reduction, but this kind of nailed it for me. It was really, it put it all together. So, long story short, fast forward 6 years, second child, third property, we'd flipped a few houses, and my wife, I looked at my wife and I said, what do you think about, I know we're kind of settling in and trying to make a family here, but what do you think if we sold everything and bought a property and we built this house of the future? Because we have children now. Wouldn't it be fun to think, not just fun, wouldn't it be important to think about how they might grow up in an environment where they could be proud of it? It's something part of the future. So I said, well, I have this idea. You want to build a passive house? And God bless my wife. She said, fantastic idea. I love it. Let's sell everything, move on. Let's go do this. So I went to work, spent a few months drawing a house as I do, kind of knuckle down Saturday morning, nice and quiet in the office, and I knuckle down and I get to work on drawing. And I draw. I think passive, passive, passive. And there's going to be a connection here, you guys. Don't worry. I start to abandon my ideas of good design and start to pull in those ideas of passive, that five points of the passive house. And I come up with a house that was truly horrendous. And I show it to Mary, and she looks at me and says, can we hire another architect, Cedric? And I'm like, okay, Mary, no, trust me, I got this. So it took me 3 hours. I came up with a few sketches for her. I said, this is what will work on this property. And she says, okay, fine. I don't completely get it, but I trust you. Get to work. And so we did. Fast forward to today. This is my daughter, Anali, she was born when we sold the house, and this is the house today. It's completely passive, and it's net zero. So it has 30 solar panels on the roof that contribute back into the grid. A few more pictures of it. My daughter's learning piano. We have a solar heated pool. And there we are, next to the creek. And I'm going to wrap this up because I probably have gone over time, but I wanted to thank you, and I wanted to remind you that the point of this discussion was really to say that there's great joy in the duality between what we know is right in our hearts and our sort of lizard brain primordial sense of good and right and beauty, and combining that with the technology of today. So I'm excited about the future. I think there's great opportunities, and as we progress in our practice, we're going to be using more and more of this technology to really nail what feels good and what looks good. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Cedric. Now can we get everyone to stand up, please? Stand up, everybody. So everybody, we're gonna do a little stretch routine here. This is one that I learned from Laurel, rest in peace. But we're gonna start by putting our hands up in the air. Now lean to one side. Now the other. Please don't hit your neighbor. Now the other. Now back again. Okay. Thank you. You guys can all sit back down. Okay. There's one more thing. Can you please raise your hand if you're in Privet House? Please. So just to wake everyone up, we're going to do something called the Privet Clap for everybody in the audience. So I can't really see anything. So if we can just start it as soon as I put down the microphone, that would be great. So next up, we have someone raining down from the mountainous regions of Colorado, weighing in at a whopping 176 pounds, Preston Curtis.
Hello, everybody. My name is Preston Curtis. Oh, this is so much fun. And today, I will be talking to you all about the power of optimism. What's so funny is I've been so optimistic this week because that's all the time I've had to do this. So I hope you enjoy. Before I start, I should probably tell you all a little bit about myself. I'm a 17-year-old high school student who has not felt an ounce of stress since he started his journey. Wow, that's incredible. How did he manage to do that? Well, it's a lot less fun than it sounds. Sadly, I didn't get to choose that. I was forced into that. I was shown just how short life is from a very young age. 11 years ago, I was diagnosed with a brain disease. This brain disease was called ADEM. I'll tell you guys the full name for it, and I'll be honest, this is what I spent most of my time memorizing. It is acute disseminated encephalomyelitis. Crushed it. Yeah, I spent 6 days memorizing that one word. What does ADEM do? But we have an acronym, ADEM. What does ADEM do, you might be asking? Let me tell you what it did for me. It destroyed everything. It took every single part of me away from me. I lost the ability to walk for years after. I couldn't talk properly. I had migraines for 6 years after the incident, which stopped me from sleeping at all. My neurons got severed, and worst of all, I lost my memories. Every single memory I'd ever had in my entire life, from the day I was born till I was 15 years old, is gone. I don't have any of them anymore. And the only reason I don't say 17 is because I have blips over the last 2 years. I remember a part of the rowing competition I went to just a week ago, parts of it. But everything else is gone. I don't remember playing catch with my dad. I don't remember learning to ride a bike. I don't remember my first day of high school. I don't remember my parents' faces most of the time. I don't remember any of it. It's all gone. And I've spent the last 11 years of my life trying to fix every single thing that I lost. But the one thing I never got back was my memories. Now, all that was absolutely terrible. And I won't lie to you, it sucked so bad. I wouldn't have changed it for the world. I was taught the most valuable lesson you ever learn in life at the age of 6, that life's short. Life is our most valuable gift we've ever received ever. Time is so valuable. At the age of 6, I almost lost my entire life. I shouldn't be standing here. 9 out of 10 people who have what I have are dead. It's just a fact. They are not alive anymore. And the other 10% are mostly in wheelchairs, not able to function. I am one of the only people who are still alive with what I have. And that's a gift. I was taught that I can't waste a second because I've lived my life in seconds. I've lived my life not knowing if tomorrow I would wake up, not knowing if in an hour I would just die, because that's how short it goes. That's how fast you lose it. And that lit a fire under me. That made me give everything I have to being the most positive version of myself physically possible. Life sucks sometimes. I'll be honest, it does. It can be terrible. But isn't life so much better if you just enjoy it? If you enjoy the downs, it may suck today, it may suck tomorrow, but that's what optimism is for. That's what it did for me. It saved me. It gave me something to look forward to in the future. It taught me that no matter what happens today, tomorrow is always going to get better. And if it doesn't get better tomorrow, it will the next day or the day after that. And even if it never does, isn't it so much better to just think that it will? Isn't it so much better to just hope that maybe tomorrow will be the best day of our lives? I mean, every single day I think, wow, this is the best day of my life, hands down. Best day ever. It may not be. I got a 15% on a science test one time. That sucked. But it was still a pretty good day. I've created an environment where no matter what happens, I can stay positive. No matter what stress I've gone through, no matter how poorly I've done the math test, no matter what, I can always stay happy. And that is the best gift I've ever been given in my life. While everything else was bad, it was worth it all for that. Life's short. You need to enjoy every second of it, rain or shine. Because for me, all I have is seconds. So I need to. There's no trick to being happy all the time, though. There's no trick. I mean, raise your hand if you've ever been sad before. Yeah, everyone. If you're not raising your hand, you're lying. But I've been sad before, and I'm giving you guys this talk today. But there is a trick to loving every moment as it comes. And this is the best part of the speech, because it sounds so ridiculous every time I say it. But the trick to enjoying every moment is just be happy. Just enjoy it. And that sounds so ridiculous and so obvious, but that's truly all you need to do. I mean, we make our own happiness, everyone. It's a fact. If you act happy, your body will be happy. Smile whenever you can. Laugh at every joke, no matter how dumb. Dance, sing, play sports, hang out with friends. I don't care. I don't care what you need to do. Just do whatever it takes for you to feel absolute pure joy. Because I can tell you, it's the best feeling in the world. Think back to a time where you were having a great moment with one of your friends, and you're like, wow, I wish this feeling could last forever. I wish I could live every day having the same exact feeling of happiness. I bet most of you probably can. That's what being optimistic gives you. It tells you that today, best feeling in the world. But tomorrow, it's going to get even better. And even if it doesn't, you can always go back to how it was in the end. I looked at a study to see how many people truly think like that life's always just going to get better. And I'll be honest, the numbers really didn't surprise me, but they were really low. 45% of people have not felt true happiness for more than 2 years. 2 years. And 25% of people have forgotten what true happiness feels like. Just run that through your head. 45% of people, 4 billion people on Earth, have not felt true happiness for more than 2 years. Every day, they go to school, or they go to work, or they come see their family, and every time they do every single one of those actions, it sucks. It sucks so bad that they can't find any joy from it. And that's been going on for years. For years. Now that makes sense. That shows me why it's so hard to be optimistic anymore. Because if life sucked for 2 years, why are you suddenly going to think, oh, it's going to get better tomorrow, right? Whoa, tomorrow's going to be different than the last 5 years of suckage. Probably not, I'll be honest. It probably won't be. But you can act like it will. And for the 25% of people who forgot what happiness feels like, I mean, just imagine that. I don't have my memories. I understand that. I don't have my memories. They're all gone. I don't remember the happy stuff very much. But I don't remember the sad stuff either. And that 25%, the only thing they remember is the sad stuff. The only thing they can look back in their brain and go, oh, I remember that, was awful, was probably what they can think is the worst day of their lives. That's all they have anymore. And they've had it for so long, there aren't any happy memories left. None. Not a single one that they can look back on and go, that was awesome. All those are just gone. I mean, life's a gift. Life is such a gift. It's so short, and yet it might be the best gift of all time. Because we're all here. We're all at Brentwood. We're all in the same atrium listening to my speech on optimism after I had a week to finish it. I mean, that's pretty cool, guys. That's pretty awesome. Life is exactly how it's supposed to be. We are exactly where we need to be. And that's what you need to realize. You need to realize that no matter what happens, life's exactly how it's supposed to be. And that tomorrow, it always just keeps getting better. Before I finish, I'm not naive. Please don't think I am. I'm not an idiot. I'm not going, just suck it up, guys. Life sucks, but just deal with it. No, I'm not saying that. What I am telling you to do is to live in those moments, to live in the sad. Life's still going to happen. You're going to lose a friend. You're going to lose family. You might get injured and miss something you've worked your whole life for. You might get sick and miss a competition that you've trained the last 5 years straight. Life happens. And you can't stop that from happening. And that's why being optimistic is so hard. Because you, in the moment, all you see is negative. All you see is the fact that you lost everything to you in that one moment. But you can't think that way anymore. I mean, I'm living proof that we don't have the time to think like that. Life's too short to think, oh, it's just going to suck. No. We have maybe max of 100 years. We have such a small amount of happy memories that we're actually going to keep. I'm not going to keep any. I understand that. But you guys will all keep happy memories. And you have such a small amount that are in your head that are happy. Why not just make them as good as possible? Why not try and remember the best ones you possibly can? Why not enjoy every moment of every second of every day forever? Because I've lived my life in seconds. It's just a fact. So enjoy every second. Life's too short not to. So I have a challenge for you all. Tomorrow morning, the sun's going to rise over the same ocean and shine through the glass panes of our brand new building, which is awesome, might I add. But that's neither here nor there. The sun's going to rise tomorrow. And it's going to be the same day as yesterday and the day before and as any other day. Unless you make a difference. Unless you decide that, tomorrow is going to be awesome. And maybe it won't be. I don't know. Maybe tomorrow's going to stink. But isn't it so much more fun to just think, wow, tomorrow's going to be the best day of my life? That makes me pretty happy to think about. Tomorrow's going to be awesome. It's going to be even better than today. So that's what you guys should try doing. When you see the sunrise, just take a second. Just stop everything that's going on and just enjoy the moment. Enjoy the moment of absolute perfection as the sun crosses over the horizon. And while I can't make any promises, I can tell you that there is a very high chance, or I hope, that tomorrow will be the best day of the rest of your life. Thank you very much. My name's Preston Curtis. Not bad. Thank you.
Wow, what an incredible talk. And last, but certainly not least, now to introduce our final speakers. They are a dynamic dad and daughter duo that became the first ever to ski all 44 lift-serviced ski areas in BC in one winter. They are the co-founders of the Tidbits of Change Foundations, whose mission it is to encourage youth to take a passion project in collaboration with a parent or mentor. Please welcome to the stage Greg Scott and Hallie Scott-Smith on their talk, Youth and Mentor Collaboration When Passion Projects Come to Life.
To all the students, if you could do a project or an adventure with one of your parents or a mentor, and it could be something maybe you're really, really passionate about, what would you imagine or what would you want it to be?
And to all of the parents or potential mentors in the room, if you could collaborate on a passion project or an adventure with the youth in this room or in your life, what would that look like?
I like to think that if you put your ideas for that question and put it into action, that you can create this wonderful bond between a youth and a parent or a mentor. And that bond is going to last for your entire life. And I think that the initiatives can have a positive impact on our communities and inspire others. And it might sound lofty, but maybe even change the world.
As you can tell, my dad is a big proponent of parents and kids spending quality time together. And when my older brother turned 10, he realized he wanted to capitalize on this one-on-one bonding time with his son. So he gave my brother the gift of bike riding across Canada together. And over 15 years, they would bike across Canada, one leg at a time, picking up one year where they left off the year before. We decided we wanted to do our own annual adventure, and so when I turned 10, we chose that we were going to go to a different city every year, and we would busk. My dad would play the guitar, I would play the fiddle, and all the money that we would raise, we would donate to a local charity in that city.
I should tell you that our first year maybe didn't go quite as smooth as expected. We had chosen to go to Portland and raise money for the Oregon Humane Society. We set up right downtown, right on the edge of a little park, and we played for about 40 minutes, and we raised a whopping 65 cents. And I was like, Hallie was quite young, and so I was like trying to put on a brave dad face, but inside, I was like, this is a disaster. But we didn't let it derail us. And we looked over and we saw that there was a lot of people in the inside of the park, and we said, you know what? I said to Hallie, let's just go right in the middle of everyone. And Hallie was like, really? And I was like, sure. I was anything but sure. But we did it, and we went in the middle, and then the magic started to set in. People started to notice us, and they read our sign and what we were doing, and they listened to our music, and all of a sudden, more and more change get thrown into our guitar case. It took us all the way to our third day and our last day when we met with the people from the Humane Society, and Hallie handed over this big, heavy, and very impressive bag of change, every single cent that we had raised. Over the years since then, our mission has just kind of got more and more special each year. There's been plenty of challenges. Every adventure has challenges and stuff, but our bond has strengthened by tackling each one of those every year. We went to Winnipeg and we raised money for the Children's Hospital, and we went down to San Diego for drought relief. And we actually came to Victoria and we raised money and awareness for cleaning up plastic in the ocean. And the list has gone on for 10 years.
And over those years, our guiding motto has been that small change can make a big difference. And we were really proud of the literal change getting thrown into our guitar case that we were putting forward to make that difference. And as the years went on, we started to hear stories, other people who had started initiatives inspired by our story. And it was really humbling because what started as a dad and daughter just wanting to have a fun adventure together and do a little something for the world grew a little bit bigger and began to snowball. And we wondered what would happen if we really put our energy and efforts into encouraging others to take on initiatives of their own.
And then everything kind of really started to gel about a year and a half ago when it led to us creating the Tidbits of Change Foundation. We're co-founders of it. And our focus of that foundation is to encourage youth to do a project of passion with their parent or their mentor. When we started to do it and we started to lay things out, we established youth bursaries, financial awards that we could give to the most inspiring youths out there with the most inspiring stories that we heard. We started to talk about doing school visits and talking to students and parent groups, encouraging initiatives, telling them about the bursaries, and maybe even help get them started.
And so when we started talking about these school visits, we wondered if we could combine it with another idea we'd been toying with of a different adventure, which was skiing all of the ski areas in BC in one winter. And so our idea was that we would ski during the day, and then we would visit a school in the afternoon or a parent-teacher meeting in the evening and share our story.
We had a pretty decent list of ski areas to start with. When I was working with Alpine Canada and the Canadian ski team, a ski buddy of mine had challenged me to see which one of us would ski all of BC and Alberta through the years. Hallie and we started to map out the possibility of skiing all of BC all in one single winter, which was a feat that we were told had never been done before.
And so on January 25th of last winter, we set out from Terrace, BC, and we skied at Shames Mountain, which is the northwesternmost ski hill in the province. And from there, we went on to ski all 44 ski areas. And let me tell you, I did not know what I was getting myself into. When my dad and I first brought up the idea, I was kind of like, okay, great, so this will be like a couple weeks, we'll be done, it'll be great, super easy. No, it was a 6-week ski trip, transitioning every day for 44 days to a different place. But every place that we went to along the way offered us something new that the others didn't, and each place had a really special, unique character to it. Even Bella Coola, which was kind of this place in the middle of nowhere where once you got there, you had to get dragged behind a snowmobile to even make it to the lift. And then the lift was this handle tow with just 5 handles on it, but it's the longest handle tow in North America. And we rode that all day.
We did find snow, obviously, but I don't know if you recall last winter, but it was a really interesting snow year. About a quarter of the way through our journey, a good portion of the province lost all of their snow midwinter. It created some pretty interesting challenges for us to try to find snow, but we kind of took it as an extra challenge. And what happened because of that is it led us to this path that we were on where we found like really, truly one-of-a-kind experiences. There were some places where they ran the lifts just for us, just so we could get our ski runs there. We had ski patrol that would take us to the top of the mountain by snowmobile. We had a couple of owners that would get snowcats and take us to where there was snow so that we could get our runs in, just so that we could check off every list in every ski area in the province.
We also got to tour in this kind of little tiny home that was designed just for the ski lifestyle. It had ski racks and even a little locker at the back to put our boots in and all of that. And that was a really cool part of the experience. But another thing that we had to deal with along the way was sharing this on social media. And neither of us are particularly social media savvy. I don't think my dad had even heard of Instagram, to be honest. And I definitely was not very savvy myself, but we wanted to share our story online, and so one way we did that was by doing what we called chairlift chatters. And at each place we went, we would interview a local legend at the ski hill, and they would tell us their story from their ski hill as we rode up the chair or the T-bar with them.
And I think those were some of our most memorable moments with some amazing people, like Rob Boyd at Whistler, who shared a story of his crazy warm-up run before he went out and won a World Cup race there, or Nancy Green at Sun Peaks, or Lifty telling us about their first day of work, or a ski patrol sharing some of their biggest challenges that they've ever had.
And when we shared these stories to social media, they ended up garnering a lot of attention. And it was really awesome because it connected us with a larger audience, and it connected our audience with even more inspiring stories.
So our journey through the province looked something like this. Just an 8,000-kilometer dad and daughter ski road trip for 44 days. And if you can imagine, while you're sitting in your chairs, if you stood up really quick and then sat right back down, and you did that 10 or 20,000 times over the next 44 days, that's what our legs did. But I can tell you that every day and every turn brought us closer together. And what a gift that was for me as a parent. Mentorship is this wonderful two-way street where we got to learn more about each other all the way through and more from each other as well on all 44 straight days.
And we learned a lot about each other. I learned lots of stuff from my dad's past that was super interesting. I also learned that he's an incredibly noisy chewer in the car, and for some reason on day 43 it was particularly loud. But we made it through, and we had so much fun that we've decided to do it again this year, but in Alberta. So in 2 months from now, we'll be heading out to ski all 40 ski areas across the province.
We're super excited about this mission of skiing Alberta.
And when we were listening to the TED Talks from last year, my dad heard a really interesting TED Talk from Ryan.
Yeah, we really liked what Ryan Knighton said last year at your TED Talks here last year when he was talking about being blind and going to a rattlesnake roundup. I think when he said, you know, the best experiences never seem to invite you. And I think that that's very, very true. But when you're able to invite yourself onto those best experiences, you know it right away because it's really special and it's really powerful. We had 3 applicants this past year for our bursary program with our foundation that I think embody that notion as well. Our bursary winners for this year include a student from Esquimalt, Felix, who has dedicated a tremendous amount of time and energy along with his parents, into research for Blau syndrome. They came together on this really heartfelt project when, unfortunately, Felix's younger sister passed away from this really rare disease just before her 7th birthday. Felix is on a mission this year to invoke 1 million acts of love before the end of the year. It's all part of his and his parents' Lexi's Legacy initiative. It's a really inspiring story, and I think it's really well worth everyone checking out.
Another story that we heard and loved was from Kayla, who recently started at the U of A, but when she was in high school, she collaborated with her dad and her grandfather. You see, Kayla is a really competitive and enthusiastic water skier and wakeboarder, but she noticed that there was a lack of equipment for adaptive athletes in her sport, and she wanted to fill that gap. So Kayla took it upon herself to design the equipment with her dad, and then she went and worked in her grandfather's woodworking shop with him to build the equipment, so that adaptive athletes could experience the sport in an entirely new way.
And then there was Cassie, a student in Kamloops, who noted that there was a real lack of warm clothing for others who were less fortunate in her city. So she took it upon herself to drum up donations in coordination with a spectacular Christmas light show that she worked on with her father. And then over the years since then, she has collaborated with her mom to expand this thing into an annual charity drive for a hospice, which has impacted the entire city. These are beautiful initiatives and beautiful stories, but when you talk to the people behind them, you immediately see how their collaborations have brought them closer together. their initiatives have had this wonderful impact on their communities, and they've inspired others, and they've impacted the entire world.
And so that brings us back to that first question that we asked, which is, if you could collaborate on a passion project or an adventure, what would that look like? What could it be? The stories you've heard here today, we hope will have a ripple effect that will inspire others to carry on their own initiatives. And your story might just be part of that wave. So what will your story be? Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank our two MCs, Parker and Carter. I'd like to invite all the speakers out to the stage. If I can get all the speakers to come out so we can give you a big round of applause, everybody. We have some gifts for you guys, so I invite the volunteers to come out and give everybody their Brentwood TedX hoodies. Come on, who doesn't want one? I think we heard some outstanding, really diverse talks today. These guys, as we talked about before, put in a lot of work. So how about one more round of applause for all the speakers today? I also, don't go anywhere, volunteers. I want the volunteers to come out and get a round of applause. All the volunteers, please come on out. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Don't be shy. Cole, you've never been shy in your life. Come on out, come on out, come on out. I'd like to thank HBF and Theatre Pro for making this such an incredible setup and such a smooth day. Thank you, Theatre Pro. I'd like to thank Miss Backlund and all the live stream guys in the back. Thank you, live stream. Brentwood Broadcast. The IT team for putting the live stream together with Miss Backlund and the team. Food Services for the food at the break. And most of all, I'd like to thank you guys. You've been an outstanding, exceptional audience. These guys coming up and speaking, it's for you guys. So you guys, I have a lot of gratitude for the way you guys behaved yourselves, and it was awesome.
But there's only one person that actually made this happen, and that's Mr. McPherson right here. So can we please give him a round of applause?
So, housekeeping stuff. Great morning, great sleep in, beautiful day. Lunch is next. Juniors are going to go first. So after we leave here, I'd ask the seniors to give it about 10, 15 minutes before you head down so food service isn't swamped. Also, love the person who dropped their AirPod during the TEDx from the balcony. If they can come see me afterwards, I'd really like to give it back to you. Thank you guys. Hope you have a wonderful day. One more time for all our speakers and volunteers.